What to teach is fairly standardized around the world, but how to teach those fundamentals is where conversations on education are getting lost in the woods, essentially. And this is due to the different values that individuals and groups bring with them to education. Now, we say that there are 4 different values primarily influencing what education looks like today. But no one other than us essentially is really talking about these values. And without noticing the values and without noticing their influence that they have, we're unable to see how when we talk to someone with different values, we're actually talking about something fundamentally different. We're not seeing the same thing. And our inability to see this in our discussions about education is hugely limiting, I guess, the evolution of education. So these 4 values are one of the parts of our map for navigating the reinvention of education. One way to think of this, just imagine 4 different sports happening on the same field. So picture a football match going on, a baseball game, a tennis match, and a round of golf. Now, each of these 4 different sports are played very differently. And, the difference between a football match, baseball game, tennis match, a round of golf, they have very different ideas about how you score points. Each of them has very different strategies. And essentially, they all have a different goal of their game they're trying to accomplish and how a winner is decided. So because we haven't pointed out that there are 4 separate games on the field, someone might just come along and see all this activity and try to give it a name. And they might just call it sports. They might just say sports are happening on that field. Well, in much the same way, we've lumped the 4 different values in education together, and we're just calling this mess of activity education, without seeing that there's fundamentally at least 4 different things happening on the field of education right now. And without teasing apart each of these 4 values, discussions on education get muddied quickly, and we get lost arguing about the use of a golf club on third base or the use of a tennis racket for hitting a soccer ball. So we've discussed that school has 3 aims, and they're often prioritized in the following order. Often, occupational preparation comes first, then the cultivation of citizenship, and then personal development. However, it's clear that there are different ideas about how to approach occupational preparation, cultivation of citizenship, and personal development, the 3 aims of school. And these different ideas are due to these 4 different values, different beliefs about what is important in life. 4 different values that inform how we organize ourselves, how we organize communities, our activities, and our systems. Now, the 4 values that we'll address come from 2 similar developmental models. So maybe you're familiar with these, maybe you're not. The first model is spiral dynamics, which was researched by Claire Graves and popularized by Don Beck. And the second being integral theory's stages of development by Ken Wilber and made popular recently by Frederick Laloux's wildly popular book, Reinventing Organizations. Now, if you don't know spiral dynamics or integral theory, don't worry. But both of these models give a name for each stage of development, or we're using the word value in this case. Now, they describe each of these values using a color, but both systems use kind of different colors. So rather than summarize each value with a color, we're giving them 4 different names. And the 4 names we're using for these 4 values are security, achievement, inclusion, and integration. So security, achievement, inclusion, and integration. And we'll dive into what the 4 of those mean coming up. Now, if you're new to our podcast and you're familiar with spiral dynamics or integral theory, here are how our terms of security, achievement, inclusion, and integration match up with integral theory or spiral dynamics. And if you don't know spiral dynamics or integral theory, no worries. I guess this is just sort of inside baseball for those who do. So the value of security aligns with the amber of integral and the blue of spiral dynamics. The value of achievement aligns with orange in both integral and spiral dynamics. The value of inclusion aligns with green in both integral and spiral dynamics. And integration, the value of integration, aligns with the teal value in integral or yellow in spiral dynamics. So each value is rooted as a response to a historical set of living conditions, different contexts. And each value is an adaptive organizing principle. It's kind of like the software. And we'll get into the nuts and bolts of each value in upcoming segments, but we'll discuss the gifts and drawbacks of each and what they look like when they're healthy and unhealthy and how they arose historically and what they're trying to accomplish. You can basically sum these up by saying that group members in each value, they look around the world and they see problems and they perceive no problem that cannot be solved by a greater adherence to their core values. So essentially, whichever value we hold, we kind of double down on it as being the ultimate problem solver. It's the thing that helps us solve problems in the world around us. So for a quick appetizer, so that you can begin to see each of these four values and the influence they're exerting on our experience of education, on how we teach, how we organize our cultures and systems, here's a quick introduction to our four values. So first, security. The first national school system model emerged in Prussia in the late 1700s, and it was responding to the demands and the needs of the military at the time. The emergence of the Industrial Revolution as the economy shifted and transitioned out of feudalism towards capitalism. Some other words we might use for this are security, stability, and safety. And this value is best suited to a clear, relatively immovable pyramid of authority. Schools as a pyramid of hierarchy and roles. So you are getting ready for work in a society where there are clear roles to uphold, in a culture where clear sections and stratas are already well established, and you have a sense of duty and obedience. School is a place where you do what is asked of you by the people above you. And that goes for students doing what's being asked of them by the teachers above them, but that also goes to the teachers are doing what is being asked of them of whoever's above them in the pyramid hierarchy. So that's one of the values that's having an influence on school today.
And so the next value was achievement. So by the late 1800s, we started to actually score students' work and mark their work to sort out who was doing better than others. And this was in response to the competitive and democratic capitalist need for ambition. So achievement. This is merit, reward-seeking, truth-seeking, self-determined, but within the given system, and seeking of success in general. School is a ladder which can be climbed due to your merit. It's a meritocracy. It helps you to gain advantages, and it sets you up for where you are going to be filtered and end up in the next stage of your school life or in the workforce. Good grades in this system was a guarantee to open doors for you. You are getting ready for a workforce that rewards results and a culture where social mobility is possible, and you desire to achieve what you desire. The value still has the largest hold on informing education currently. And this is what we're talking about with mainstream schooling currently.
What we're also seeing right now is the emergence of the next value, which we're calling inclusion, as a response to some of the shortcomings of achievement. So after a while, it becomes obvious that the achievement game hasn't been fair for everyone involved. And we've actually started to take apart how we conducted this one-size-fits-all game of marking students and scoring their achievement against a curriculum, which is a central component of the achievement value we just discussed. What is the point of school if it isn't relevant or meaningful to the student who is within it? So within the inclusion value, we begin to see more of a negotiation between what the teacher or school is requiring of the student and what the student wishes to focus on. And the inclusion value is in response to this socialist, postmodern, pluralist, deconstructivist, relativist paradigm, which has also emerged within the culture at large. Some other words for inclusion could be a focus on well-being or equality seeking. School, rather than being a pyramid or a ladder, becomes more of a circle where everyone has the right to be who they are and how they are. And you're getting ready for a workforce that values work that is meaningful and sustainable, with an emphasis on the idea of promoting sustainable economies. And it's also in response to a world where that guaranteed ladder, the guaranteed results of getting good marks in achievement, isn't quite so solid. This is in a culture where the voicing of diverse perspectives and giving a seat to those who weren't at the table and consensus really matter. Within the inclusion value, you desire to keep an open mind, explore your inner self, and at times sacrifice your needs for the group's overall well-being. And in terms of education, this is more or less on the cutting edge of the improve school camp. Now, the final value we'll discuss is a value that is currently emerging, but is making up a very tiny percentage, probably less than 1% of what we're actually seeing in school. But it's a hint at this idea of the reinvention of education. And this is what we're fascinated by on this podcast.
Yeah, and I think one term we've said is the baby's in the bathwater, and each of the three values there sees itself as awesome and without problems. What we are seeing here in this new value, which we call integration, is that we're deconstructing school and differentiating for ability and encouraging students. It was valuable, but the development of a wider range of human capacities is far more useful in this rapidly changing VUCA world. And VUCA, again, is a term that means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So as this inclusion value before was starting to give students more of their own say in their education, it's still not necessarily responding to the world. So this integration value is a response to what we might call a postmodern world, where we reintegrate what has been deconstructed. We put it back together and we aim to integrate the most appropriate elements of all the previous values in order to serve the development of the student as a human across multiple capacities, even those that traditionally were not given much attention in the security and achievement school systems. So we have, in those previous three systems of security, achievement, and inclusion, brought online a huge range of human capacities, but not necessarily at the same time and not necessarily given priority in the right place or the best for the context. And so this value of integration is really where we are digging further into that concept to see those few institutions, teachers, parents, humans who are working to develop this paradigm. What does it look like?